Horrible Harry's Secret by Suzy Kline. Horrible Harry's Secret. When Song Lee brought a water frog to room 2B, Harry flashed a big smile. Neat-o, he said. Harry loves slimy things, hairy things, and creepy things. Harry loves anything horrible. I know I am his best friend, Doug. We watched the teacher help Song Lee set the tank on the science table. Does your frog have a name? Miss Mackle asked. Bong, Song Lee said softly. Sydney laid his ruler on his desk so that 8 inches of it were sticking out. Then he hit the end of it. Bong! 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 Harry held up his fist. Don't you make fun of a frog's name. I'm just making good music, Sydney replied, bonging his ruler some more. Well, stop it, Harry demanded. Make me Harry the Canary. You call me that one more time and You'll what? Harry put his fist next to Sydney's nose. I'll punch you in the schnotzsola. Schnotzsola. Sydney cackled. Song Lee looked over at the boys and frowned. Is Bong a Korean name? The teacher asked. Song Lee nodded. Bong Lee was my grandfather. I named my frog after him. Miss Mackle smiled as she tapped the tank. Welcome to room 2B, Bong. Have you fed him today? I will feed Bong now. When Song Lee brought out a small white carton, we gathered around the table. What do you feed your water frog? Sydney asked. Song Lee opened the lid and carefully put a little piece of food on a toothpick. Liver, she said. Ew. Sydney groaned. Liver smells. Harry took a deep whiff. Liver for the water frog. Awesome. We watched Song Lee lower her hand into the spring water. She put the toothpick with the piece of liver in front of the frog. Zap! The frog gulped all the liver. The toothpick was clean. Sydney held his nose and went back to his seat. Harry looked at the frog and then at Song Lee. I'm in love, he whispered. With a frog? I replied. No. With her. I looked at Miss Mackle. The teacher? Doug, Harry whispered. I'm in love with Song Lee. I gulped some air like that frog gulped the liver. Really? Harry nodded. Then he showed his 2 rows of perfect white teeth. It was the biggest smile I'd ever seen. Don't tell anyone, Harry added. Your secret is safe with me, I said. As I went back to my seat, I thought about it. Harry did some horrible things. In 2nd grade, but this was the most horriblest of all. I wouldn't dare say a word to anyone else. Harry did himself. It was during a math test when Miss Mackle explained how to fill in bubbles marked A, B, C, or D, none of the above. That was when Harry got the idea to send the note. I looked at it quickly and then passed it on to Song Lee. 5 minutes later, the note came back. I couldn't look at it. All this love business was making me sick. When I looked at Harry after he read it, I wondered if he was sick, too. His head was on his desk. Then it came to me. Song Lee must have marked D, none of the above. Poor Harry. As we walked home from school, Harry didn't say anything. He acted like he was going to cry. Suddenly, someone jumped from behind us. Boo! Sydney shouted. Harry turned around. Hi, Harry the Canary. Tweet! Tweet! Oh, I thought. Sydney's schnauz solo was in trouble. I watched Harry roll up his sleeves. When Song Lee, Mary, and Ida came walking down the street, Harry looked up. Yeah, El Tweedo? What are you planning to do about it? Shake your hand, Harry replied. I like birds. I think it's neat the way they get worms. Sydney jerked his hand away. He wanted to see if there was a worm squished in it. There wasn't. Sydney was safe. He shook Harry's hand. Song Lee looked over and waved. Harry waved back. That was when the note dropped out of Harry's jacket pocket. I looked down on the sidewalk and read it. Dear Harry, I will like you if you don't fight with Sydney. It is bad to fight. I know because my grandfather Bong died in Korean War. Song Lee was smiling at Song Lee and still shaking Sydney's hand. There was no doubt about it. Harry was in love. How horrible could things get? No wonder Harry looked sad walking home. He felt bad about Song Lee's grandfather. But he sure didn't feel bad now. The deadly snowdown. The next morning we had our first snowfall of the school year. There were 2 inches of white fluffy stuff all over the ground, parked cars, rooftops, tree branches, and South School. Let's make snowballs, I said. Yeah. Harry agreed. We sank to our knees in a snowbank near the school ramp and started ing them. Pack them down good, Harry said. We made a dozen snowballs in no time. Then we made a second pile. 2 dozen. I shouted. So, who's our first victim? Just then a man was coming up the street in a winter hat. It was pulled low over his forehead. We could just see the guy's eyes and nose. Ready to fire? Harry shouted. I held my arm in the air. Ready! Suddenly, we heard a familiar voice. Bravissimo! Our first snow! It was our principal. Good morning, boys, he called out. Good morning, Mr. Cardini, we replied. We dropped our snowballs to the ground. As he whistled by, we fell back in the snow. Phew! What a close call, I said. When I heard another voice coming down the street, I sat up. It's Sydney! Get ready to fire! I called out. Harry shook his head. I'm not fight ing with Sydney anymore, remember? Now Sydney couldn't be the victim. If we don't fire these snowballs pretty soon, I said, they'll melt. SHHHH. Harry said. Here comes some more voices. Be ready to attack. 3 girls in winter caps and scarves and mittens walked down the ramp. Ready to fire. I called. Forget it, Doug, Harry grumbled. It's Mary and Ida, but Song Lee is with them. I don't want to attack her. Of course he wouldn't. Harry was in love with Song Lee. You're no fun anymore, I said. Yeah. Well, why don't we fire snowballs on each other? But we're friends, I said. Harry grinned. We could pretend we're enemies. I grinned back. Prepare for war. Harry handed me 2 snowballs. He took 2 snowballs for himself. Did you ever see a cowboy do a showdown? Sure. Lots of times on TV. The good cowboy has a showdown with the bad cowboy. Well, we're going to do it just like they do, only we're calling it a snowdown. A snowdown? You're the good cowboy, and I'm... Harry growled, the bad cowboy. Stand back to back and take 4 paces. After 4 paces, we turn and fire 2 shots. Got it! As we stood back to back, I held 1 snowball in each hand. They were icy cold. We started counting 1, 2, 3, 4. We turned around and aimed at each other. Splish! Splat! Wish! Whoosh! Harry got me on the top of my head and in the back. I nailed him in the shoulder and stomach. We both fell down laughing in the snow. You're dead. I said. You're dead. Harry said. Suddenly, the school bell rang. We jumped to our feet. We're both dead. I shouted. Quickly, we ran down the ramp like 2 downhill skiers. The red foil gift. As we raced across the playground, something fell out of Harry's pocket. It was a present wrapped in red foil paper and red ribbon. Who's that for? Harry flashed a big smile. For Song Lee. But I have to find out if she really likes me first, before I give it to her. Harry picked up the red gift and we ran into the school building. Boys and girls, Miss Mackle said, as we rushed to our seats. I thought we would celebrate our first big snowfall with an art workshop all morn ing. Everyone clapped and cheered. Harry and I whistled. Our hands were frozen stiff. I mixed some blue paint and cut a long strip of butcher paper. You can find a spot and start painting a wonderful winter mural that celebrates the Christmas and Hanukkah season. Just 1 color of paint? Mary complained. The blue color will give the mural a frosty look. You'll see, Mary. Mary was still frowning. Can we work with a friend? If you like, the teacher replied. Mary, Ida, and Song Lee huddled together. Okay, Miss Mackle said. Everyone move their desks and chairs so you have lots of space to lie down and paint on the floor. Harry pushed his desk over by the window and then he walked up to Sydney. Do you want to do a snow picture together? Sydney took a step back. Do you? Sure, come on, Sid, Harry said, taking a carton of blue paint. I was glad they didn't ask me to join them. Harry and Sydney working together? That was trouble. Miss Mackle noticed right away. I'm glad to see you boys bury the hatchet. It's time you got along. Harry and Sydney looked at each other. Then they giggled and started painting. I didn't want any part of their plan. I stuck to my own. I made a picture of the snowdown Harry and I had before school. Song Lee and Ida and Mary were painting themselves in a big toboggan going down a hill. I noticed Song Lee would stop and smile over at Harry and Sydney. Harry grinned back. When Miss Mackle strolled by, she stopped by my work. Do I know those 2 boys throwing snowballs at each other? I laughed. She did, too. When she came to Harry and Sydney's work, she stopped laughing. What are you doing? Everyone gathered around to see what the boys had painted. A cemetery, everyone shouted. Look at the tombstones. Miss Mackle put her hands on her hips. It is not Halloween, boys. We are supposed to be celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah, the season of peace and love. Harry started to speak just as Mr. Cardini waltzed into the room. A magnificent mural. Bravo! When he walked over and looked at the cemetery scene, he scratched his head. Can you tell me about? You're part of the mural, boys? Why did you paint a grave and what did you bury? An axe. Harry replied. An axe? We buried the hatchet, Sydney grinned. Harry and I are friends now, see? Mr. Cardini looked while Sydney pointed to the axe under the grave. Oh! Mr. Cardini exclaimed. Then he turned to Miss Mackle, who was trying not to laugh. I think you have a great mural here. Put it up in the hallway. It will be a gift of peace and love to all. Harry flashed a big smile when the principal said love. Then he looked at Song Lee. Song Lee went to her desk and took out a pencil and paper. Then she folded it in half and gave it to Harry. Harry read it, and then he showed it to me. Dear Harry, remember your A, B, C, D letter? My answer is C. Song Lee. I remembered the C answer. That a lot. Meant Song Lee liked Harry. Harry was beaming. He took out his red foil present and walked over to the science table. Song Lee was alone. She was feeding Bong his daily liver. I watched her open up the present. She unfolded the red foil paper carefully. She saved the bow. When she took the lid off the box, she smiled and said thank you. It was a necklace with a thin gold ribbon strung around 5 burnt-out Christmas tree lights. Harry put it over her head. Then he came up to me. What do you think of that gift I made? He whispered. I think you're getting too mushy. Horrible. Harry didn't think so. He just flashed his pearly whites at me. Frogs, liver, and love? Later that morning, while our mural was drying, Miss Mackle said, now we are going to sketch each other. I hope you put in lots of detail. Can we pick who we draw? Ida asked. No, Miss Mackle said. Since the desks are close together, I just want you to sketch whoever is next to you. Harry beamed. His desk was pushed next to Song Lee's by the window. Mine was near Ida's. I'm not near anyone. Sydney complained. I don't have a partner. Miss Mackle quickly looked at the situation. We'll have one group of 3. Why don't you join Harry and Song Lee? Yeah. I get to draw Harry. Sydney cackled. That's fine, Miss Mackle agreed. Harry is drawing Song Lee, and Song Lee will draw you, Sydney. When the teacher placed a big sheet of white art paper on my desk, she said, Doug, don't forget to draw Ida's beautiful black curls. I frowned. Drawing curls was not my idea of a good time. After she passed out paper, she said, find out what the person that you are drawing likes and draw those things around the border. Harry made a toothy smile as he started to sketch Song Lee. Sydney cackled as he looked at Harry and pulled out a pencil. Song Lee drew a big oval for Sydney's head. What do you like, Ida? I asked. Ballet and music. What about you, Doug? That's easy. I like Indians Cochise, Sitting Bull, Geronimo. I was running out of names, so I threw one in from an old TV program, Dash and Tonto. I can draw good Indian headbands with lots of feathers. I'll put them all around your portrait. I didn't mind the assignment so much anymore. I just wondered what ballet shoes looked like. All I could remember was one pair in a shop window. They had long pink shoelaces. Can I borrow your pink? I asked Song Lee. She had a box of 64 crayons. When she handed me the pink, I looked at her drawing. She gave Sydney lots of hair and made it stick out. She put canary stickers and tinker toys in the border. When I looked at Sydney's portrait of Harry, I laughed. He put a mustache and beard on Harry's face. Now he was making horns. Old Sydney was up to his tricks again. At the moment, Harry was too busy to notice. He was drawing frogs, beetles, and liver on toothpicks around Song Li's face. It was a portrait of love, all right. "These are wonderful," Miss Mackle exclaimed. When she got to Sydney's drawing, she frowned. "I didn't know Harry had hair on his face and was growing horns," she said. The class laughed. Harry held up his fist. Sydney started erasing the mustache and beard. "I was just fooling around, Miss Mackle. I'll start over again." "And why did you put canaries in the border?" "Harry likes dinosaurs and ants and—" Harry looked at Song Li. Her face turned the same color as the crayon she was holding, carnation pink. "And—" Sydney needed help. "I like frogs, beetles, and liver," Harry replied. Sydney got busy coloring. "And my teeth," Harry added. Sydney looked up. "Your teeth?" Harry flashed a big smile. 2 perfect rows of pearly whites. Everyone laughed again. The teacher moved on while Sydney drew lots of teeth in the border. They reminded me of that cat's smile in Alice in Wonderland. Harry went back to his drawing. Song Li made a little red heart on a piece of paper and gave it to Harry. I think she was glad Harry didn't punch Sydney's schnotzsola. I had to get back to more serious boosiness. Drawing black curls and pink shoelaces. Harry the thief? Something must have happened to Harry over the weekend. I didn't know what it was, but it sure made Harry act different. Monday morning, Harry didn't flash his pearly whites once. Not even at Song Li. "Are you okay?" I asked in class. Harry looked at me, but he didn't say anything. "So, you're giving me the silent treatment, huh?" Harry didn't say a word. He was giving me the silent treatment. "Fine," I said. "I'll just read about Indian shelters." Then I looked at some pictures of teepees, hogans, longhouses, and pueblos. Song Li stopped by Harry's desk with a piece of paper. "It is a picture of Bong," she said. Harry just pushed the drawing away and put his head down. Maybe Harry wasn't in love anymore? I really didn't care if he was or wasn't. I just wanted him to be his old horrible self again. Even Sydney noticed the way Harry was acting. He tried to tease him. "Hi, Harry the Canary. What's the matter, El Tweedo?" Harry didn't even hold up his fist. He took out a book about Tyrannosaurus Rex and started reading. "Harry's no fun anymore," Sydney said, during library time. "He doesn't get bugged when I tease him and he doesn't chase me anymore." Song Li looked sad. "I think Harry is hurting inside. Maybe he should see the nurse with the alligator purse," Sydney cackled. "He doesn't feel good in his heart," Song Li said. "Yeah," I agreed. "Something is bothering him. Maybe something happened at home." Suddenly Sydney stopped cackling. "Maybe his parents are getting a divorce. Mine did last year." I felt sad for a long time. I looked at Sydney. "He never told us that before." "Who do you live with?" I asked. "My dad. My mom just left us." "I'm sorry about that, Sydney," I said. "Me, too," Song Li said. "Well," Sydney replied, If Harry's mom left, we could tell by looking at his lunch. That's right, I said. Harry's mom always packs something homemade in his lunchbox. If there's nothing homemade in there, she's probably gone. At noontime, we all sat next to Harry. We watched him take out a peanut butter sandwich, a banana, and 3 pieces of homemade fudge. She's still here, I called out. Harry looked at me funny as he gave me a piece of fudge, Songli a piece, and Sydney a piece. Now I really knew something was wrong. Harry didn't leave a piece for himself. What was making Harry feel so horrible? We got our first clue during math. Just when Harry was getting his workbook, $2 fell out of his desk. $2. It was not a day to bring in lunch money. It was not a bake sale day. Where did Harry get that money? Did he steal it? I pictured Harry on a wanted poster down at the post office. It was horrible. My best friend a robber? A thief? I had to find out what was the matter with Harry during 2 o'clock recess. As soon as I spotted him, I jumped on his back and knocked him over in the snow. After I pinned him down, I shouted, "Tell me what is going on or I'll." Sydney joined in, "Or you'll smash his schnoz." I held up my fist and acted like I was going to do it. Song Lee came running over. "And no fighting," she shouted. When she kneeled next to Harry, she said, "We will just talk like friends." "He won't talk," Sydney grumbled. "He won't talk," I said. "He will talk," Song Lee said. "Give him a chance." I stopped pinning Harry down and got off him. Harry sat up and looked at all of us. He looked like he was going to cry. "You want the horrible truth?" he said. We all nodded. It happened Saturday night. I knocked them both out when I ran into a wall. See? Harry opened his mouth wide. We all looked inside. Harry's 2 front teeth were missing. I felt bad. Song Lee handed Harry her handkerchief with the pink cherry blossoms on it. Harry blew his nose and gave it back to her. Sydney patted Harry's back. It happens to every second grader. My front teeth are both wiggly. You'll get new permanent ones, I said. I didn't know how important Harry's teeth were to him. Harry rubbed his finger along his gum where the empty spaces were. Grandfather Bong lost his permanent teeth, Song Lee said. That is really sad. Harry stood up. Hey! I feel something rough in my gum. We all looked into his mouth again. You're getting new teeth, I said. New teeth, Harry shouted. He jumped up and down so many times he made a deep hole in the snowbank. The 3 of us had to pull him out. Want to get some donuts after school at the corner bakery? Harry said, holding up $2. I have my tooth fairy money. Boy, was I relieved. My best friend wasn't a robber after all. Sure, we shouted. Sometimes when we share the horrible truth, we become closer friends.